Good morning, chess players. This year, to be honest, after playing a few games in round 3, I was almost sure that I would not be able to advance. I quickly lost both games against my main rival, who ended this round in second place. In addition, there were 4 players in the group with titles, including one person with a blitz rating above 2800. Ultimately, I managed to win a lot of tight positions. It can even be said that there were also defeats at the request of an opponent who did not want to accept the draw. Traditionally, you will be able to solve several puzzles based on the games I've played. However, this time you will start with the spectacular combination that I managed to make. So let's focus on the chessboard. I was playing black. My opponent started with e4. I answered with e6, so French defense as usual. For b5. Okay, so let's skip the opening quite quickly because nothing interesting is here. Okay, b3. I think this move is quite popular, but after short castle, my opponent played bishop b2. In my opinion, much better is bishop f4, takes, and here knight e4. White has two possibility, g3. After g3, there is knight takes d4 with fork in next move, and the other option is knight e2. Maybe here white position is a bit better. Okay, so go back. My opponent played bishop b2, knight d7, knight g3, king a8, king h1. So this position was played many times so far. And here I played knight b4. This move is not popular, but I think it's the best move in this position. I only saw one game when black played this move, but look at this position. If, for example, white played a3, I can take, and bishop b5, winning exchange. So if white don't want to change this bishop for my knight, they should play it here or here. Of course, more natural is bishop b1 because after bishop b1, this bishop is still looking at black king position. So my opponent played here, and we are still attacking. This time rook have to make a move, rook e1, and once again another cheat after cheat. So here is another cheat, so king g1, and now e5, and another cheat after. Okay, let's make this move. After taking e5, there is knight f2. If white played queen d4, bishop c5, and after any move like knight queen h4 attacking here, we have pawn more. We can play even knight e4 with simple win, I guess. Even here I can show you quite interesting line. Here We are sacrificing bishop, but then check, check, and very popular checkmate. Let's back to the game. Here my opponent played knight f5. It's also in accuracy. Okay, so what else? Let's back. Okay, now we know that white cannot capture this pawn because of f2 square weakness. So the only way, okay, and what is the treat? Black is treating playing e4 after, for example, knight d2, knight f2, because rook and knight is looking at this pawn. So the only way to save this game is to chase away this queen from this diagonal. And how to do this? a4. If in this position black played weak, for example, bishop a6, there is a5, queen c7, and now let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, and black has only 1, 2, 3. So d takes e5 and white position is much better. So after e4 is the only move. White can capture this bishop, takes, knight f6. Okay, white is one pawn more, but these two pawns are weak. Also, these two pawns are not safe, so I think black position is quite nice. Okay, back to the game. Opponent didn't find this a4, played as I mentioned knight f5, and now e4, attacking this knight. Of course, white cannot go to h4 because check, and royal fork. Okay, so let's move. During the game, my opponent takes this bishop. Okay, now once again this knight cannot move because, for example, here there is checkmate. That's why my opponent played h3. Of course, there's also another possibility, knight e5, but after knight f2, queen d2, knight d3 is winning, because after rook d1, e3, queen take e3, and black captured this bishop, and we are one knight more. Of course, even if in such simple position, you have to be careful, because if you play rook f2, there is queen takes e4, knight takes e4, and check. Takes, and bishop a3. So this knight is under attack, this bishop is under attack. Of course, black has this passed pawn, but this game is quite complicated, and I'm not sure if black is still winning. Okay, so That's why in this position my opponent played h3, and let's treat this position as the first puzzle. Black to move, how to win. Let's stop the video for like 10 seconds. Of course, every time if you need more time to calculate some lines or to think more, just feel free to pause the video and think as long as you need. In this position, answer is knight takes f2, and I played it during the game. Of course, king takes f2 is the only move, and now I can create another puzzle, but okay, another sacrifice. Rook f2, f takes f3, so now white is one rook more, but this king is really weak. Check. And now the most interesting move in this game. Of course, black can capture this bishop, but we are not interested in these pieces. We prefer to sacrifice it. So quite of silent move. E takes e3. Unfortunately, during the game, my opponent captured this pawn, and after check, bishop e4, game was over because it's checkmate, and it's checkmate with double fork. Okay, let's make some move. I hoped that during the game my opponent choose this move, because after that I could play f2, attacking rook, rook f1, and we are starting with checks. White cannot play queen f3 because check. Rook takes e4, and black is winning queen. So the only move is king e2, another check, king c3, queen e3. So we are checking this king as much as possible. After bishop d3, just knight takes d3 is enough. Okay, but another sacrifice, so white can capture this knight. Now this position is quite funny because this rook didn't make any move during the game, but plays a great role is this combination because after a5 pawn is protected, so white have to take this bishop after king a3 before queen takes before checkmate. So king takes b5, rook queen e8, king b6 or king c5, and nice checkmate. Black has rook and two bishops more, but these kings went far away and black is winning. As I said, unfortunately it didn't happen during the game, but nevertheless this game was really interesting. After watching such a game, we are definitely used to tactics, so now it's time to solve some puzzles. Let's start from the simplest one. Although it's very simple, at the same time it's a bit tricky. so white to move. Okay, queen c2 is an answer. Black has to protect this knight, and white is winning h7 pawn. Okay, it's simple, but during the game, in the beginning, I also mentioned that it's tricky, and why it's mentioned it because during the game, and especially while you are solving puzzle, you are looking for something spectacular, and in this position, of course, queen c2 is not spectacular, but bishop h7, of course, but it's mistake because we are winning pawn after king h7, queen c2 check, but black can simply go away. Queen takes c6, rook b8, and in the next move, for example, if white played rook d1, bishop b7, queen c3, queen d5, and white is one pawn more, but look at this bishop, which is very active and very dangerous, and compare it with this poor bishop. Also, this bishop is very active. Black has two pawns on the queen side, and I'm sure that even if white has one pawn more, black is better in this position. Here I was playing black. After an opening I had quite promising situation, and then I missed one trick. So white to move, how to get an advantage. Okay, knight e4 is an answer. Now this pawn is overloaded because the same time it is protecting c4 knight and cannot simply capture this e4 knight. During the game I was also thinking to reply with bishop c5, but after takes, queen exchange, white position for sure is much better due to poor development of black pieces. So let's back. Okay, I have to admit that my previous move in the game was b6. Of course, after the game I can say that b5 was much better because then this knight would be protected by two pawns. Okay. So what to play? Eventually I decided to take this knight. Rook c4, bishop c5, and now this move is with some trap because queen c3 is not possible because check, and black is winning. Also after queen e4 there is check. We know that it's not possible to take this bishop because rook c4 is hanging, so king h1, bishop b7, rook c7, take, and short castle. Of course, maybe white is a bit better, but black is still fighting, and king is safe. But rook e1 was this move, which is winning. Fortunately, my opponent missed this move, and during the game I also missed this move. And now, after bishop takes d4, rook 7, white is winning because there are too many trees, like knight e4, rook f7, and knight e7. Here I was playing white after some inequalities after an opening, including capture of poisoned pawn. My king is in real trouble. So black to move, how to win. Okay, queen g3 is an answer, attacking white rook. So the only move is rook h1 and bishop g7. Of course, attacking queen and opening f file. During the game, I played queen h4. There is nothing else to do. My opponent captured, takes, and I resigned because it's quick checkmate. And here we have another game I lost soon after an opening with the same player. Fortunately, my opponent lost against third place, made some draws, and finally finished half point after me. So, white to move, how to win. Okay, in similar position, generally it's hard to resist of capturing h7 pawn, and this move is the best one, it's an answer. So my opponent captured, of course there is no choice, and knight f5. The treat is simple, so there are two possibilities. Either we can protect this pawn or played g6. I decided for g6 because after rook g8 there is check. Okay, now of course we can win the queen, but after rook knight d3, probably white is winning, but it's not so simple. Instead of winning queen, there is simple checkmate, check, and queen h5 checkmate. That's why I played g6. My opponent give me check on h4, the only move. Knight h6, king g7. After king h7, there is check. Here, king g8 or g7 or g8. For example, here, check, check, and we are winning queen. Here, check. And now, final, the best move. I missed this during the game. Knight f5 with simple treat. Once again, rook g8 is losing very quickly. So during the game, I captured, check, another check, and rook e4. Okay, there is simple treat. Rook g4 and then rook g7 on, or queen g7 on queen h4 checkmate. That's why I played queen d7, hoping that my opponent would play such move and I still fighting. But of course, it's simple to give checkmate. So I resigned. During this game, I had no chances for win. While I was calculating how to gain draw, my opponent helped me to score whole point. White to move, how to win. Okay, here my opponent played last move knight h3 check. In the beginning it looks like nice tactics which can give him advantage, but g take h3 is an answer. After check, bishop g2, bishop take g2. Okay, and now it's not possible to take this bishop because this knight is pinned, so it looks fine for black, but it's easy way to unpin this knight h4, and that's the move I play during the game. And after queen takes h4, we can both take this knight with knight or with king, and white is simply winning. Another equal game I managed to win. With opposite color bishops, white missed an opportunity for a draw, so white to move, find only line to not lose. Okay, king takes pawn on h4 is an answer. During the game, my opponent decided to protect this pawn. In the beginning, I also thought that is the best idea, but during the game, I answer with king d3, king e3. So the idea is to capture this pawn. c4. White also want to have fast pawn, so takes d5. Okay, but this square on d7 is protected, so I can capture g3 pawn, takes, and h4. It's very important to have these two pawn passed, g3 and h4, h3, and then h2, and the next move, and my opponent resigned. Okay, so let's back to the beginning. After king takes e4, king takes c3, bishop b6, and white has this one additional move, one additional tempo, and black has to protect this pawn because of course it's not a good idea to take these pawns, because now white has this pawn advanced and this pawn, and one of this is going to be promoted, so white is winning. That's white during, and that's why black has to protect this pawn. Bishop 7 is another very good move, because after king f3 we have way to protect this pawn playing f5. In such kind of endgame, it's more important to protect all pawns than and you can for sure sacrifice this f5, 5, king c4. Okay, it's quite simple. King e4, bishop f4, king e5, and it must be a draw. White to move. How to win in 3 moves. Okay, bishop g7, attacking knight is an answer. During the game, my opponent played take this pawn on g4, but after taking g4, h5, e5, h5, e6, h4, rook e7. My opponent resigned because soon I can play here, then here, and promote pawn. Let's back the game. And after knight f7, bishop d4 is winning white. Rook is under attack, and after also this knight is blocking escape. So, for example, check, attacking this pawn, and nearly checkmate, but there is protection, and white is winning very simple because it's bishop more, and this pawn would be promoted soon. During the game, I missed this simple trick, so black to move, how to win. Okay, this time, before I will show you the correct move, I will present the move I played during the game. It was rook f8, and now after, because this rook is protecting rook f5, after bishop d6, of course it's not possible to play to escape rook to f7 because of rook e8, but black has to h5, and I was so focused on this move that I missed winning line. Okay. During the game it was king h4, rook f7 with pawn more for black. It's an advantage that eventually I managed to win, but it was not so simple. And here, simple rook e5 is winning. I totally missed it, as I mentioned. Takes, and another check. And after king g3, rook d3, and white cannot give checkmate while this square is protected by knight king, and black is winning. Here in this position, white is to move, find the fastest way to win this bishop against rook endgame. Okay, f5 is an answer after capturing with check. My opponent take this pawn, and after d7 he resigned because king is overloaded, protecting d7, attacking d7 pawn and protecting this move. And another option for passive was king d7, but after a6, f6, so two threats, rook takes e6, f7, rook a10, king e5, and we are going to g7, and white is winning. During the game, in last move, I captured with bishop g6 pawn, and I missed one simple trick. So, black to move. How to draw this game? Okay, knight g4 is an answer. The other option is to take this bishop. Queen g6 check. Now, of course, it's not possible to make such fork because of knight g4 before a fork. That's why f3 is best move, protecting g4. Rook e8, another check, and g4. Okay, if we calculate pawns, white pawns, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 pawn against 3 pawns, but black has bishop more, so it's 3 against 3. Looks equal, but let's look at this weakness on b7. Of course, this king is not safe, and generally black pieces are very passive. So if we compare it to very active white piece position, for sure white is much better. But during the game, my opponent gives me check. This check. I capture this pawn, and this is a very logical move, taking this bishop. Okay, queen e2. Of course, it's not possible to back knight with 2 e5 because bishop f5. Okay, the only move is knight d3, but capture, and black position is much better. There are some such risks soon, or even black can go back with this rook to f7, and black is the only who is fighting for a win. But fortunately, during the game, after queen e2, my opponent didn't capture this knight, but played bishop f5. I reply with bishop d2, bishop c8, knight e5, and finally I managed to win. But what happened after? Bishop takes g4, king takes g4, and rook f2. Rook a2 is giving a draw for black. Of course, it's not possible to play rook f7 because queen b8, and the same rook f8, queen b7, rook b7. Yes, and white position is much better. So rook a2, rook b7, and perpetual check. During the game, I was thinking that this bishop rook g2 would be the last move, and we agreed for a draw. But fortunately, as I mentioned, my opponent choose another way, and it gives me a chance to win this game. And these are all interesting puzzles that appeared during my games in the third round. As you could see, I was able to win many games, a little luckily with considerable help from my opponents. I finished this round again with 17 and half points out of possible 20, and that's me on the first place. During the tournament, I didn't manage to solve all puzzles on the board, but if you managed and you are not a grandmaster, you are on the right way. Nevertheless, just keep training, and of course, I encourage everyone to play daily chess. Goodbye.